Hi, welcome dear. How are you? Hello, Swapnil. How are you? Welcome everyone. Hello, dear Nitale. How are you? Welcome back. How are you doing? Good evening. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. How are you? Let's see who's gonna be the first. Hi, dear Swapnil. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Nidale. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Comment your beautiful name. Hi, dear Amor. Here is your good name. Thank you so much. Natalia was done and is back. Elsbecta. Here is yours. Hi, dear Kanav. How are you? Here is a good name. Hello, dear Aurelia. Here is yours. Aurelia. Welcome. How are you? Hi, dear Wasim. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Joshini. Here is your good name. It was pretty good. How about yours? Hi, dear Leah. Here is yours. Hola. Hi, dear Mohantri. Here is yours. Hello, dear Martin. Here is your good name. Oh, good to hear. Hi, dear Eruja. Here is yours. Hello, dear Hadi. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Lela. Here is yours. Hi, dear Sibkaji. How are you? Walaikum assalam. Hello, dear Ona. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Susan. Here is I am writing son. Suzanne. Here is yours. Hello, dear Astrid. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Arhan. Here is yours. Hello, dear Toiba. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Theona. Here is yours. Hello, dear Lion. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Ube. Here is yours. Hello, dear Abdullah. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Redan. Here is yours. Hello, dear Levin. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Nahir. Here is yours. Hello, dear Aisha. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Zoe. Here is yours. Hello, dear Mackenzie. Here is your good name. Thank you so much for joining. Here's a good name. Hi, dear Hassan. Here is yours. Hi, dear Namir. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Lily. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining. Don't forget to press the subscribe button. Hi, dear Sonam. Here is your good name. Thank you for subscribing. Hi, dear Shania. Here is yours. Hi, dear Venom. Here is your good name. Uh huh. No. Not yet. Hi, dear Adam. Here is your. What's your favorite fruit, by the way? Hi, dear Hassan. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Dahlia. Here is yours. Hello, dear Utasha. Here is a beautiful name. Hi, dear Satya. Thank you for subscribing. Hello, dear Adam. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Habibullah. Here is yours. Habibullah, here is yours. Hi, dear Icy, here is your good name. Hi, dear Mana, here is yours. Hello, dear Emilia, here is your good name. Hi, dear Andy, here is yours. Hello, dear Purvi, here is your good name. Hi, dear. No, here is yours. Hello, dear Venus, here is your good name. Hi, dear Bangchan, here is yours. Thank you so much for joining. Don't forget to double tap on your screens. Hi, dear Zad. Here is a good name. Let's see who's next. Hi, dear Manha. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Sophia. Here is yours. Hi, dear Hidayah. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Selma, here is yours. Hi, dear Jamla, here is your good name. Hi, dear Nusaiba, here is yours. Nusaiba, it is a good name. Hi, dear Aiden, here is a good name. Hi, dear Molly, here is yours. Hi, dear Ulas, here is your good name. Hi, dear Matob, here is yours. Don't forget to double tap on your screens, and there is a subscribe button waiting for you to press, guys. Thank you. You're most welcome. Hello, dear Mina. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Mina Hill. Here is yours. Hello, dear Harris. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Arohi. Here is yours. Hello, dear Light. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Megumi. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining. Double tap on your screens to like this live. Hi, dear Yagmur. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Shiny. Here is yours. Hello, dear Blackpink. Hello, dear Blink. Here is yours. Hello, dear Mia. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Arley. Here is yours. Hi, dear Rajan. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Zoe. Here is yours. Hello, dear Nidesh. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Aurora. Aurora, here is yours. Hi, dear Yukira. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Lisa. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Let's see who is next. Hi, dear Hannah. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Sharon. Here. is yours. Hello, dear Nervi. Okay, Nervi. Here is yours. Hi, dear Lauren. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Sonakshi. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining. Don't forget to double tap on your screens. Hi, dear Humera. Here is a beautiful name. Hi, dear Micah. Here is yours. Hello, dear Davu. Here is a good name. Okay, dear Block. BLOK. Here is yours. Hello, dear Sarah. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Thiru. Here is yours. Let's see who is our next subscriber. Kadir. Hi, dear Kadir. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Amira. Here is yours. Yahnas. Oh, wow. What a cool name you have. Here is yours. Hello, dear Sylvia. Sylvia, here is yours. Hi, dear Lara. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Iman. Here is yours. Hello, dear Maddie. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Asha. Here is yours. Hi, dear Azan. Here is a beautiful name. Hello, dear Bluebell. Here is yours. Bluebell. It is a good name. Double tap on your screens. Don't forget to like and subscribe, guys. Double tap on your screens. You're most welcome, Blue. Let's see who is next. Jake. Hi, dear Jake. Here is yours. Hi, dear Seema. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Asha. Here is yours. Cutie Pie. Hi, dear Naman. Here is a good name. Hello, dear sweetie. Here is yours. Let's see who is next. Hi, dear Deva. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Darling. Here is yours. Hi, dear. Yay. What's your name? Unlimited AYE. AY and E. Okay. Hello. Are you saying Eva? Here is yours. Hello, dear Ritik. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Niveta. Dr. Niveta. So we have Dr. Niveta in the chat. How are you? Hi, dear Asil. Here is a good name. Hi, dear. Walaikum Assalam. Safu, right? Welcome back. How are you? Hello, dear Elsa. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Diora. Here is yours. Hello, dear Evelyn. Here is a good name. Hi, let's see who is next. Oh, you are the bestest. Thank you. Hi, dear Joanna. Here is a beautiful name. Hi, dear Megan. Here is yours. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hi, dear Eliza. Here is yours. Hi, dear Mary. Here is a good name. You're most welcome. Hello, dear Agatha. Here is yours. Hi, dear. Let's see who is next. Fatima. Fatima, here is a good name. Hello, dear Jafisa, here is yours. Hi, dear Evie, here is a good name. Hi, dear Joey, here is yours. Hi, dear Gaurav, here is a good name. How are you? Hi, dear Juwan, here is yours. Hello, dear Charlie, here is a beautiful name. Hello, dear Arju, here is yours. Hi, dear Hala, here is a beautiful name. Hello, dear Ishal, here is yours. Hello, dear Lamia, here is a good name. Hello, dear Jenny, here is yours. Hi, dear Monishka, here is yours. Thank you so much for joining, and don't forget to press the subscribe button. Double tap on your screen. Hi, dear Naz. Here is yours. Hello. Hi, dear Eva. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Ruby. Here is yours. Hi, dear Khavla. Khavla. What a name you have. Here is yours. Hello, dear Kashish. Here is a beautiful name. Hi, dear Zaydan. Here is yours. Hello, dear Nesia. Here is a beautiful name. Hi, dear Leah. Here is yours. Hello, dear Liz. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Stella. Here is yours. Walaikum assalam. Welcome back. Hi, dear Trisha. Here is yours. Hello, dear Saren. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Iman. Here is yours. Hello, dear Prince. Here is a good name. Hi, dear. I'm doing good. How about you? Anisha, here is yours. Thank you so much for joining. Mozem, here is yours. Hi, dear Esme. Here is a good name. Subkaji, the other phone is on charging, so that's why I can't be able to read the long comments. Hi, dear Sophia. Here is yours. Hello, dear Zainab. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Faden. Here is yours. Please don't use special fonts, dear. Hello, dear Jessie. Here is yours. Hi, dear Liana. Here is a good name. Double tap on your screens. Hi, dear Rutba. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Fidela. Here is yours. Fidela. Hi, dear Finja. Here is a beautiful name. Hi, dear Elena. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining. Hi, dear Zainab. Here is a good name. Hello, dear. Oh, thank you. Nancy, here is yours. Lots of love. Thank you. Hi, dear Nicole. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear. Please don't write in caps. It takes so much time to read. Let me add the question. Just wait for a minute. Let me add the question. Just wait for a minute. Double tap on your screens. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Oh, it's on now. Hi, dear Yusuf. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Huda. Here is yours. Hello, dear Diora. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Nilanika. Nilanika. What a name you have, dear Nilanika. Nilanika. Here is yours. I don't know. You don't know what's your favorite fruit? Is it mango? Hi, dear one. Here is yours. Hello, dear Zoe. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Myla. Here is yours. Do you like watermelon? Hi, dear Lakshmi. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Jaisal. Here is yours. E-signatures. Yes, dear. Hi, dear Shay. Here is yours. Hi, dear Creede. Here is a good name. What a unique name you have. Hi, dear Gia. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Dua. Here is yours. Hi, dear Jaden. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Amy. Here is yours. Rebnur. Hi, dear Rebnur. Here is a beautiful name. Orange Beach. Hi, dear Musa. Here is yours. Hello, dear Seamanner. Seamanner, here is yours. Hi, dear Anshika. Here is your good name. We are still stuck on 6-7. Can we make it 7-7 at least? Anshika, have to break this. Hi, dear Miriam. Here is your good name. Hi, welcome. Dear Ariman, here is yours. Hello, dear Sophia. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Molly. Here is yours. Hi, dear Vani. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Iman. Another Iman we have. Welcome. Hi, dear Iram. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Hazel. Here is yours. Hi, dear Ishmeet. Here is your beautiful name. How are you? Hi, dear Hema. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Ananya. Here is yours. Hello, dear Lucia. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Laz. Here is yours. Hi, dear Kawahir. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Mirel. Here is yours. Hi, dear Freya. Here is a good name. Hello, dear. Why not? Okay, hey. Here is yours. Hi, dear DSION. Hello, dear Han. Here is yours. Hi, dear Hina. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Bilal. Here is yours. Don't forget to press that subscribe button. Hello, dear Cassie. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Nicheala. Michaela, here is yours. Hi, dear Aleph. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Yash. Here is yours. Hello, dear Ayan. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Saru. Here is yours. Hi, dear Mia. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Daddy. Welcome back. Hi, dear Raha. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Yay. Here is yours. Hi, dear Java. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Amen. Here is yours. Hi, dear Gladys. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Alice. Here is yours. Thank you so much, dear Alice. Hi, dear Usman. Here is your beautiful name. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hi, dear, for you, dear Army. Here is yours. Hi, dear Petro. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Aksa. Here is yours. Hi, D. Jane. Here is yours. Hi, dear Kieran. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Nursin. Here is yours. Hi, dear Sangram. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Ezra. Here is yours. Hi, dear Holly. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Ubed. Here is yours. Hi, dear Jade. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Henry. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Taha. Here is yours. Hello, dear Jasmine. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Chinu. Here is, oh, justice for the H. Here is yours. Let's see who is next. Hi, dear Elena. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Senna. Here is yours. Hi, dear Tina. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Umaya. Here is yours. Hi, dear Manya. Here is your good name. Hello, Iman. Here is yours. Hi, dear Rebel. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Yusuf. Here is yours. Hello, dear Sana. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Raima. Here is yours. Hello, dear Berkeley. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Hannah. Here is yours. Hello, dear Rian. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Mac. Here is yours. We are literally stuck on 83. Double tap on your screens and don't forget to press the subscribe button. Hi, dear Uya. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Asa. Here is yours. Hello, dear V. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Zohra. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Bhagya. Here is yours. Hello, dear Hasim. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Ahmed. Here is yours. Hi, dear Quenire. Here is yours. What a unique name you have. Hi, dear Yusuf. Here is yours. Hi, dear Zion. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Deepu. Here is yours. Hello, dear family. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Amadullah. Welcome back. How are you? Here is yours. Hi, dear JK. Here is yours. Oh God. Hi, dear Yanis. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Miriam. Here is yours. Hello, dear. Can you try Vereen? Vereen or Let me check the spelling. Vanny. Hello, dear Vanny. Here is yours. You are the cutest. Thank you. Hi, dear Fasna. Here is yours. Hi, dear Regan. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Ishan. Here is yours. Let's see who's gonna be the 100 liker. Come on, double tap on your screens. Hi, dear Doha. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Vasila. Here is yours. Hi, dear Adam. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Lito. Here is yours. What a unique name you have. Hello, dear Maham. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Alfina. Here is yours. Don't write in caps because it takes so much time to understand. Hi, dear Jake. Here is yours. And comments are moving fast, so don't have enough time to read the capital letters. So please, guys, don't write in caps. Hi, dear Astral. Here is yours. Hi, dear Lucia. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Fare. Here is yours. Hello, dear Akam. Here is a beautiful name. Hi, dear Noah. Here is yours. Hello, dear Shazina. Here is your beautiful name. Shazina. Hello, dear Rose. Here is yours. Hi, dear Deku. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, my name. What's a good name? Hi, dear baby. Here is yours. Hello, dear. Hi, Zahur. Here is yours. Hello, dear Madison. Here is a good name. Madison. Here is yours. Hi, dear Sarah. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Laka. Here is yours. Laka or Lucia. Sorry, I mispronounced your name. If Hi, dear Kyra. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Muskan. Here is yours. Double tap on your screen. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hi, dear Anya. Here is yours. You're most welcome. Hello, dear Molly. Here is yours. Hi, dear Kadu. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Vaughn. Here is yours. Hello, dear Kindle. It is a good name. Hi, dear Vince. Here is yours. Hello, dear Malika. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Bella. Here is yours. It's pronounced Luca. Okay, dear Luca, thank you so much for correcting me. Let's see who is next. Hi, dear Asha. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Sanika. Here is yours. Hi, dear Eva. Here is yours. Hello, dear Mubina. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Murtaza. Here is yours. Hi, dear Eva. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Salsabel. How are you? Here is yours. Hi, dear persona. Here is your beautiful name. Double tap on your screen. Hi, dear London. Here is yours. Hello, dear Sajida. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Irandi. Here is yours. Gursiman. Thank you. Irandi. Hi, dear Gursiman. Here is your beautiful name. Thank you so much for the compliment, dear. Lots of love. Hi, dear Ayush, here is yours. Hello, dear Lena, here is your good name. Hi, dear Aman and 67. Double tap on your screens. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's see who is next. Hi, dear Leah, here is yours. Hi, dear Tulahia. Wow, what a name. Laya, here is yours. Hi, dear Rana, here is a good name. Hello, dear Palak, here is yours. Hi, dear Anna, here is a beautiful name. Hi, dear Samara. Samara or Samira? Samara, here is yours. Hi, dear Moksha, here is a good name. Hello, dear Jyoti, here is yours. Oh God. Okay, let's see who is next. Hi, dear Sue Hale. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, Strawberry. Nice. Hi, dear Raja. Here is yours. Hello, dear Priyasi. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Melina. Here is yours. Son. Here is yours. Hi, dear Sansika. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Asifa. Here is yours. Hi, dear Karen. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Dima. Here is yours. Too much emojis. Please don't use too much emojis. Hi, dear Ayan. Here is yours. Hi, dear Swara. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Mala. Here is yours. Hello, dear Suhail. Here is your good name. Hello, hi. Hello, dear Rana. Here is yours. Hi, dear Hilda. What a unique name you have, dear Hilda. Here is yours. Hi, dear Manasvi. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Lorena. Here is yours. Hi, dear Adeline. Here is a good name. Thank you so much for subscribing. Don't forget to double tap on your screens. Let me wear the glasses. Cause the lighting, I don't can't even. Okay. Hi, dear Asad. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Ruwaida. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining, dear Ruwaida. Hi, dear Frida. Here is a beautiful name. Hello, dear Farhan. Here is yours. Hi, dear Nancy. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Dana. Here is yours. Hi, dear Ale. Here is a beautiful name. Hi, dear Miriam. Here is yours. Hello, dear Andrew. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Masha, here is yours. Hello, dear Hira, here's a good name. Hey, BD, yes, Amul Bhai, are you here? Hello, dear ones, here is yours. Hi, dear Agan, here is a good name. Hello, dear Sashi, here is yours. Hi, dear Elmi, here is a good name. Let's see who's gonna be the 130th liker. Hi, dear Aradhya, here is yours. Ah, come on, moderator वाली आईडी से आओ भाई. Hello, dear Ayan, here is yours. Hi, dear Zainab, here is a good name. Hi, dear Aisha, here is yours. Hello, dear Uzma, here is your beautiful name. So, hey, please don't spam. Your name is done twice, man. Why are you still spamming? Please don't spam. Dear Suhail. Hi, dear Jihan, here is yours. Hello, dear Stella, here is your good name. Hi, dear Robert, here is yours. Thank you so much for joining. Oh, thank God. Hi, dear Arid, here is a good name. Hello, dear Munira, here is a good name. Hi, dear Emma, here is yours. Hello, dear Eva, here is a good name. And let's see who is next. Hi, dear Afra, here is a good name. Hi, dear Mango with two hair. King of all fruits, Momina, here is yours. Okay, hi, dear Rayhan, here is a good name. Hello, dear Sirat, here is yours. Hi, dear Rasha, here is your good name. Hello, dear Eliza, here is yours. Let me drink some water. Double tap on your screen. Okay, dear Dilyara, please don't use too much emojis. Here is yours. Hi, dear Zuri, here is your good name. Hello, dear Jillian, here is yours. Hi, dear Jida, here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Levy, here is yours. Hi, dear Just Noor, here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Aliha, here is yours. Hello, dear Ishana, here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Arya, here is yours. Hey, dear Clarice, here is your beautiful name. Thank you so much for subscribing. Hello, dear Kathleen, here is yours. Hello, dear Jira, here is your good name. Hi, dear Liam, here is yours. Oh no. Hi, dear Sky. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Baron. Here is yours. Hi, dear Valeria. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Sirat. Here is yours. Hi, dear Kavya. Here is your beautiful name. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hello, dear Aru, here is yours. Hi, dear Ayoni, here is your good name. Thank you so much. Hi, dear Adira, here is yours. Thank you so much, dear. Hi, dear Ria, here is yours. Hello, dear Aisha, here is your good name. Hi, dear. Don't know. Hi, dear Rudra, here is yours. Let's see who is next. Maya. Hello, dear Maya, here is yours. Hello, dear Nurseda, here is your good name. Thank you so much for the compliment, guys. Lots of love. Hi, dear Mira, here is yours. Kya? Guys, double tap on your screens. नाइट बोर्ड ने नहीं दिया मैंने दिया है. Hi dear Trisha, here is yours. Let's see who is next. Why? There are so many comments, so if your comment missed by chance, so it doesn't mean that I want to ignore anybody. Please don't think like that, guys. Hi dear Hugo, here is yours. Hi dear Maya, here's a good name. Hello dear Lala, here is yours. Hi dear Hisiang, here is yours. क्या क्या बोला है आपने मुझे भाई? एक मिनट ठहरे. Nurshada, welcome. Merhaba, nasılsın? İncalara hoş geldiniz. Hi dear Heba, here is a good name. Hi dear Evelyn, here is yours. Thanks, you're most welcome. Thank you. Hi dear Iram, here is yours. Hello dear Malak, here is a good name. Hi dear Nefes, here is yours. Thank you so much. Ishu, yeah. Hello. Oh, your name is Ishu. Here is yours. Hi, dear Sarah. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Rushda. Here is yours. Hello, dear Jay. Is a good name. Hi, dear Maya. Here is yours. Hi, dear Momina. Here is a good name. Thank you. Thank you so much. Usman, thank you. Hello, dear Momina. Here is yours. Hi, dear Darlin. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Luna. Here is yours. Bye. Thanks. Okay. Enjoy your meal. Hi, dear Arjun. Here is your. Take care. Bye bye. Hi, dear Rafiq. Here is your good name. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Don't forget to press the subscribe button. Pizda was done. Oh, okay. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining. Hello, dear Fatima. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Sejal. Here is yours. Hello, dear Sugam. Please don't use too much emojis. Please, you just comment your name, dears. Hi, dear Subash. Here is yours. Hi, dear Loro. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Gulu. Here is yours. Hello, dear Uzair. It is a good name. Hi, dear Dimfo. Here is a beautiful name. Okay, let me write BABW like A and H. Hello, dear Sana, here is yours. Hi, dear Ayan, here is your good name. Hi, dear Reba, here is yours. Double tap on your screens and don't forget to press the subscribe button, guys. Hello, dear Bella, here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Zoya, here is yours. Hey, dear Shaxlow, what's up? Here is yours. Hi, dear Alia. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Selma. Here is yours. Hi, dear Gulrukh. Gulrukh, here is yours. Hello, dear Mora. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Justus. Here is yours. Double tap on your screens to like this live. And don't forget to press the subscribe button. Hi, Farheen. How are you? You don't know? What? Hey, dear Bat. How are you? Here is yours. Hi, dear Albina. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Tamara. Here is yours. Hello, dear Zainab. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Hamza. Here is yours. Hello, dear Hamad. Here is your good name. You're most welcome. Double tap on your screens and don't forget to press the subscribe button there. Hi, dear Sharon. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Ali. Here is yours. Hi, dear Sada. Here is yours. Hi, dear Zenat. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Adele. Here is yours. ADE. Let me check the spelling. ADELIE. LIE. Here is yours. Hi, Sky. Welcome. How are you? Hi, dear Seema. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Stravia. Here is yours. Hello, dear Lily. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Yakut. Here is yours. Hi, dear Hannah. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Isma. Here is yours. Hi, dear Hanan. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Alice. Double tap on your screens. Come on. Let's see who's gonna be the 167 liker. Hi, dear Alice. Here is your good name. Hello, hello, my dear. Hi, how are you? Hi, dear Hikaru. Here is yours. Hi, dear Johns. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Navras. Here is yours. Hello, dear Christian. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Emma. Here is yours. Hi, dear Costi V. here is a good name. Hi, dear Luca. Here is yours. Hello, hi, welcome. Can I have Gisela? Why not? Here is yours. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. Hi, dear Rilo. Here is a beautiful name. Hello, dear Rajna. Here is yours. Hi, dear Frida. Here is a beautiful name. Hello, dear Frey. Here is yours. Hello, dear Zoha. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Eva. Here is yours. Hi, dear Dua. It is a good name. Okay, dear Zina. Here is yours. Zina with a lot of cats. Strawberry. Yay. Strawberry vanilla. Which ice cream do you love? Hi, dear Hirsch. Here is yours. Hello, dear Bim. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Kate. Here is yours. Hi, dear Amelia. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Dijad. Here is yours. Hello, dear Lishant. Here is a beautiful name. What's your name? Is your name Dama? Ilama Dana. Hey, dear Dana. ¿Cómo estás? Hi, dear Aisha. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Diego. Here is yours. Hi, dear Chloe. Here is a beautiful name. Hi, dear Scarlett. Here is yours. Hi, dear Ellie. Here's a good name. Hi, dear Malak. Here is yours. Mango. Hi, dear Ratin? Ratin or I forgot the spelling. What's your name? Hi, dear Aileen. Here is yours. Hello, dear Dave. It is a good name. Hi, dear Ishwari. Here is yours. Aman, why are you here? Guys, can someone crack a joke? Joke? Just for lighten up the mood. Hi, dear Dima. Here is yours. Hello, dear Lenora. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Anmin. Here is yours. Oh, what's your name, dear Martins? Tell me, what's a good name? Hi, dear Nashley. Here is a good name. Mango strawberry. Hi, dear Ubeda. Here is yours. Hi, dear Zores. Here is a beautiful name. Hi, dear Umesh. Here is yours. My name is Sammy. Hello, dear Sammy. Here is a good name. Your name is Lily. Oh, God. Hi, dear Lily. Here is yours. I think I wrote your name in almost every live 4 to 5 times. Hi, dear Isha. Here is yours. Hi, dear Dali. Here is a good name. Let's see who's gonna be the 167. Hi, dear. So yeah, welcome, Janik. Here is yours. Hi, dear Demon. Here is a good name. Thanks, you're most welcome. Hi, dear Vaishnavi. Here is yours. Hello, dear Sophia. Sophia, here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Shubhratan. Huh? Let me check the spelling. Shubhatran. It's hard to pronounce for me, but yeah, I can write. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining. Double tap on your screens. Tulsi. Hi, dear Tulsi. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Arfat. Here is yours. Hi, dear Jack. Here is yours. Hi, dear Takwa. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Ali. Here is yours. Hi, dear Hadia. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Tango. Here is yours. Hello, dear Emulia. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Mehmet. Here is yours. Popcorn. Hey, dear Apis. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Lela. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining, dear Lela. Hi, dear Ankita. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Jyoti. Here is yours. Hello, dear Arohi. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Say. Here is yours. Let me drink some water. I don't know why my Thank you so much for your patience, guys. Hello, dear Pratik. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Namira. Here is yours. Hi, dear Amina. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Lela. Here is yours. Hi, dear Amin. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Emily. Here is yours. Hi, dear Kaleda. Here is yours. Hello, dear Shraddha. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Benita. Here is yours. Hi, dear Kimberly. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Tuana. Here is yours. Hello, dear Liza. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Malu. Here is yours. Hi, dear Asiya. Here is a good name. Hi, dear. I means hello, dear Noor. Here is yours. Hi, dear Krishna. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Amna. Here is yours. Hello, dear Jaslyn. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Malu. Here is yours. Hello, dear Anna. Here is your good news. We are literally stuck on 72, guys. Oh my god. Double tap on your screens. Hi, dear Asma. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Gianna. Here is yours. Can we make it 177 at least? At least. Hi, dear Misa. Here is yours. Hello, dear Thai cook. Here is yours, dear Army. Hi, dear Danny. Here is a beautiful name. Hi, dear Alia. Here is yours. Hello, dear Hafsa. Here is a beautiful name. Hi, dear Aurora. Thank you. Lots of love, dear Aurora. Here is yours. You're most welcome. It's okay, dear. If you want, anyone else did. Hi, dear Liam. Here is yours. Hi, dear Anita. Here is your good name. Hi, dear. Oh, is your name is Shadya? Okay, I thought that you wrote Shraddha. What a beautiful name you have. Let me check the spelling. Hiy and A. Here is yours. Hi, dear Harlet. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear. Ah, you're most welcome. Thank you. ईशाल अपना ही नाम गलत लिख रही हूँ देखो. Here is yours. Hi, dear Zarish. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Yashpa. Thank you. Here is yours. Welcome back, Amar Bhai. How are you? Thank you. Hello, dear Falak. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Diksha. Here is yours. Hello, dear Harris. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Shay. Here is yours. Welcome back. How are you? Hello, dear. It's grapes. Isabella. Here is yours. Hi, dear Ija. Here is a good name. Uh-huh. Harris. Hello, dear Harris. Here is yours. पता नहीं मेरा गला क्यों बैठ गया है ऐसे लग रहा है क्या मेरी आवाज़ थोड़ी थोड़ी चेंज लग रही है Hey dear Addie, here is yours. Hi dear Jason, here is a beautiful name. Hi dear Neelam, here is yours. Hey dear Aiden, thank you so much Isabella. Lots of love. Here is yours. Hi dear Maddie, here is a good name. Hello dear Lucas, here is yours. Hi dear Ahyeon, here is yours. Oh, hi, welcome Ahmed. How are you? Thank you so much. Hello dear Javeria, here is your beautiful name. You are the sweetest dear, thank you. Hi dear Asma, here is yours. I'm good too, thank you so much for asking. Hey dear Lara, here is a good name. Hi dear Reagan, here is yours. Hello dear Prost, here is yours. I am good, how about you? Hi dear Lisa, here is a good name. Hello dear Farha, here is yours. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Double tap on your screens. My favorite food is. Oh, thank you for subscribing. Parishe. What a beautiful name. Here is yours. Maria. Thank you so much for subscribing, dear Maria. Here is yours. Hi, dear Reba. Here is your beautiful name. Hi. Please write from who? What? Who? Shazan. Hello, dear Shazan. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Sheba. Here is yours. Double tap on your screens and don't forget to press the subscribe button. It spells favorite. Blueberry. Good to hear. Favorite and blueberry. Wow. What a choice. Thank you, dear. Lots of love. Hi, dear Fushi. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Sumaya. Here is yours. Hi, dear Durian. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Ella. Ella or Eli? What is your name? Hi, dear Harshita. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Sumaya. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining. Happy birthday. Hello, dear Rahmi. Here is a beautiful name. Oh, which kind of fruit it is? I didn't hear about durian is a fruit. Literally. Hello, dear Cece. Here is yours. Hi, dear Kashyap. Here is your beautiful name. Hamdan. Okay. Happy birthday, dear Hamdan. Here is yours. Hi, dear Fawaz. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Ayat. Here is yours. Hello, dear Mango. Nindi. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Mariam. Here is yours. I don't know. Muhammad. Maybe हमसे कोई surname Muhammad और Mozim. Mubashir. Hi, dear Deep. और कौन सा सरनेम बनता है हमसे? Momin. Hello, dear Susanna. Here is a good name. My favorite fruit is mango. Good to hear. Hi, dear Lala. Here is a beautiful name. Hi, dear Robash. Here is yours. Hello, dear Labiba. Here is a beautiful name. We are stuck on 86. Hey, dear Maria. Here is a good name. Double tap on your screens and don't forget to press the subscribe button. नहीं मोज़म भाई आपका नहीं लिया था मोज़म बोला मैंने मोज़म मोज़म नाम बनता है ना Hi dear Tonka, here is yours. Hi dear Anaya, here is a good name. Hello dear Bella, here is yours. Double tap on your screens, double tap on your screen. We have to complete 195. 195 Ria. Hello dear Ria. Here is a good name. Hi dear Sanvi. Here is yours. Hello, dear Cherry. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Anaya. Here is yours. Shrishta. Hi, dear Shrishta. Here is your beautiful name. Come on. Double tap on your screens. Hi, dear Abira. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Lara. Here is yours. Hi, dear Arab. Here is your beautiful name. अच्छी बात है भाई. Hi, dear Ruhana. Here is yours. Hi, dear Melon. Here is your beautiful name. मैं ठीक हूँ, आप कैसे हो? जिमिन था देखो, उन्होंने भी कुछ और लिख दिया और मैंने भी लिखने लगी थी मैं भी. Here is yours. Double tap on your screens. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Oh yeah. Hi Sean, welcome. Just give me 1 minute. Ella. Hello dear Ella. Here is your good name. Hi dear Ishal. Here is yours. Hi dear Megan. Here is your beautiful name. Nadia. Nadia, Nadia, Nadia. Here is yours. Hi, dear Muskan. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Bisma. Here is yours. Hi, dear Buddy. Here is your beautiful name. How are you? Hello, dear Abdul Qadir. Abdul Qadir. The CEO of AQ Cosmetics. Here is yours. इस नाम से बस मुझे यही याद आया. Hi dear Labiba. Here is yours. अमोल भाई सॉरी आपको कमेंट मिस हो गया है, दोबारा कर दें एक दफ़ा प्लीज़. मैम आप रेबा है ना मैम? आपने मैम का फुल फॉर्म नहीं देखा? हाँ नहीं ना. क्या नाम था? रेबा. Let's see who's gonna be the 2000. My brain is not braining now. Hi, dear Jana. Here is yours. Yeah, Reba. Okay. Hi, dear Shruti. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Kushal. Here is yours. Who? Let's see who's gonna be the 200th liker. And I was saying 2000th liker. What I am saying, man. Hi, dear Takwa. Here is yours. Hello, dear Lisa. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Karan. Here is yours. Full form of ma'am is Muhammad Asal Ali Mirza. वाह, ये मिर्जा आपने खुद से ऐड किया है ना, मैंने तो आपको मिर्जा नाम को बताया ही नहीं था. राना. Hello, dear Rana. How are you? Hi, dear Zainab. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Ajwa. Here is yours. अब देखना ये जो 9 लाइक रह गया ना भाई, ये बड़े लंबे होने हमारे. Come on, guys, double tap on your screens. Hi, dear Shiza. Here is yours. Hello, dear Suri. Here's a good name. Hi, dear Palas. Here is yours. Hi, dear Kia, here's a good name. Hi, dear Noah, here is yours. Hello, dear Celestine, here is a good name. Hi, dear Alicia, here is yours. Hi, dear Tommy, here is a good name. Mm, what is my name? Bhupendra Singh Jogi. Double tap on your screens. Come on, you have to complete 200, guys. Grapes, good to hear. Hi, dear Mitra, here is yours. Hi, dear Urvashi, here is your good name. Hi, dear Zara, here is your. Thank you, you're most welcome. My name. Hi, dear Mahalat, here is yours. My name is Vishal. Hi, dear Elanza, here is your good name. Hi, dear Vashni. Mute. Hello, welcome back. It's lagging. Also of the network issue. Hi, dear Reshma. Here is a beautiful name. Why? Is it lagging really badly? It's better now. Just give me 1 minute, guys. Is it better now? Camila. Hi, dear Mina. How are you? Hello, dear Reshma. It is a good name. Hi, dear. Hi, welcome. Rumesha. It is a good name. Hello, dear Sanagam. Here is yours. Oh, good to hear. Hello, dear Emilia. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Ashi. Here is yours. Hello, dear Gitika. Here is a beautiful name. Hi, dear Kavir. Here is yours. Hello, dear Mason. Here is a beautiful name. Hi, dear Usman. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And now it's time to end the stream. And our last name for this stream is Shreya. Hello, dear Shreya. Reshma. Kesar. Okay, dear Kesar. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining. Don't forget to double tap on your screens. Now it's time to end the stream. I'll be back. No, I'll be not back after 1 hour. Shriya. Okay, dear Shriya. See you tomorrow morning. Till then, take care. Thank you so much for subscribing. Okay, let's try it for Bandita. Here is yours. And now it's time to end the stream. Thank you so much for subscribing, everyone. Thank you so much for your precious time. And good night. Take care. Bye bye.